The first joint mission between the Galactic Federation and humanity began on a cold morning at orbital station Nexus 7. Ambassador Trixala of the Velari species stood at the observation window, watching the human transport ship dock. Her blue skin shifted to a lighter shade, showing her nervousness. She had read all the reports about humans, but reading and meeting were very different things. "They are here," said Commander Zethan, a tall insectoid from the Crick's homeworld. His compound eyes reflected the lights of the docking bay. "I still think this mission is too dangerous for them. Humans are new to space travel. They only discovered faster-than-light technology 50 years ago." Trixala turned to face him. "The Federation Council approved this joint mission. We need to learn about each other. The humans have shown they are eager to prove themselves." "Eager does not mean capable," Zethan clicked his mandibles. "The Varkan desert world will test any species. Even we Cricks find it challenging, and we come from a harsh planet ourselves." The airlock hissed open. 3 humans walked through, led by a woman with brown skin and short black hair. She moved with confidence, her boots making solid sounds on the metal floor. Behind her came 2 men, one tall with pale skin and red hair, the other shorter with dark eyes and a friendly smile. "Ambassador Trixala," the woman said, extending her hand. "I am Captain Sarah Chen. These are my team members, Lieutenant Marcus Flynn and Specialist David Park." Trixala had studied human customs. She reached out and shook the offered hand. The grip was firm and warm. Humans ran hot, she remembered. Their body temperature was higher than most Federation species. "Welcome to Nexus 7, Captain Chen. This is Commander Zethan of the Crick's Directorate. He will be leading the mission." Sarah turned to the insectoid commander and offered the same handshake. Zethan hesitated for a moment, then extended one of his 4 arms. He was surprised by the strength in the human's grip. "We are honored to work with the Federation," Sarah said. "My team has trained extensively for this mission." "The briefing will begin in 1 hour," Zethan said. "I will explain the dangers of Varkan IV. You should rest until then." Marcus, the red-haired lieutenant, laughed. "Rest? We just woke up from cryosleep on the transport. We have been sleeping for 3 weeks. Trust me, Commander, we are ready to work." Zethan's antennae twitched. This was unusual. Most species needed time to recover from cryosleep. "Very well, follow me to the briefing room." The briefing room held a large holographic display showing a planet covered in red and orange deserts. Mountains rose from the sand like broken teeth. Dust storms swirled across the surface. "Varkan IV," Zethan began. "A Class 7 desert world. Daytime temperatures reach 65 degrees Celsius. Nights drop to -20. The atmosphere is thin but breathable. Gravity is 1.2 standard." "Sounds like home," David said quietly. Trixala looked at him. "Pardon." "Sorry, just a joke. Earth has some rough places too. I grew up in the Mojave Desert. This looks similar, just more intense." Zethan continued. "The mission objective is to study the ruins discovered by our survey team. Ancient structures, possibly from a civilization that died out millions of years ago. We need samples, scans, and any artifacts we can safely transport." "How long is the mission?" Sarah asked. "Standard Federation protocol for a survey like this is 15 days. We will have base camp supplies for 20 days, allowing a safety margin." "And the dangers," Marcus leaned forward. "Aside from the extreme temperatures, there are sandstorms that can last for days. The winds carry rocks and debris at high speeds. There is also native wildlife. The survey team reported seeing large creatures they called sand lurkers. They appear to be predators, but they avoided contact. We do not know if they are dangerous." "They always are," Sarah said. "Predators respect strength and avoid what they cannot easily kill. The question is whether they see us as prey or threats." Trixala was impressed. The human captain showed tactical thinking. "We have encountered similar situations on other worlds. Standard procedure is to avoid contact and retreat if confronted. And if retreat is not possible, Marcus asked. There was silence. Zethan finally spoke. Then we defend ourselves, but we prefer not to harm native species if we can avoid it. Agreed, Sarah nodded. We are scientists and explorers, not soldiers, but we did not come unprepared. The team that would descend to Varkan IV consisted of 12 members total. 3 humans, 4 Velari, 3 Krix, and 2 Morathi, a species of small furry beings known for their technical skills. Trixala would be leading the Velari team. She had conducted 14 successful surveys for the Federation, but she had never worked with humans before. Their reputation was strange. Some Federation species called them dangerous and unpredictable. Others called them brave and resourceful. She was curious to see which description was accurate. The transport shuttle launched the next morning, carrying them down through Varkan's thin atmosphere. The descent was rough, winds buffeting the small craft. Rough ride, one of the Velari, a young male named Krentel, gripped his seat harness. His skin had turned almost white with fear. David Park sat across from him, perfectly calm. This is not bad. You should try landing on Mars during dust season. Now that is a bumpy ride. The shuttle touched down on a flat plain of red sand. Through the windows, they could see the ancient ruins in the distance. Massive stone structures rose from the desert, worn smooth by millions of years of wind and sand. Zethan was first out of the shuttle. He scanned the area with his equipment and declared it safe. One by one, the team members exited, carrying their gear. The heat hit them immediately. Even through her environmental suit, Trixala felt the warmth pressing against her. She checked her internal temperature, already rising. The Velari were used to moderate climates. This would be challenging. She looked at the humans. They wore lighter suits than the rest of the team. When she questioned this, Sarah explained. Humans need to sweat to cool down. Heavy suits trap the moisture. We designed these to allow our natural cooling system to work while still protecting us from the environment. Fascinating, Trixala said, but will you not dehydrate faster? Yes, we will need to drink more water, but it is more efficient for us this way. Trust me, we have experience with hot environments. Marcus was already unpacking equipment, moving heavy containers as if they weighed nothing. The higher gravity did not seem to bother him. He is strong, Zethan observed. Marcus was a construction worker before joining the expedition program, Sarah said. He is used to hard physical labor. They established base camp near the shuttle, setting up pressure tents and equipment stations. The work took several hours, and by the time they finished, the sun was beginning to set. The temperature dropped rapidly. What had been burning heat became bitter cold. The team gathered in the main tent for their first meal together. Trixala noticed that the humans were still active, while her Velari team members were already showing signs of fatigue. Krentel was barely keeping his eyes open. Your people tire easily in extreme conditions, Sarah observed. Is the temperature affecting you? We Velari evolved in stable environments, Trixala admitted. Temperature extremes require our bodies to work harder to maintain balance. We will adapt, but it takes time. Get some rest, Sarah said. My team can handle the night watch. All night, that is a 12-hour shift. Marcus grinned. We have done longer. Back on Earth, some jobs require working 24 hours or more without sleep. Doctors, soldiers, emergency responders. 12 hours is nothing. Trixala exchanged glances with Zethan. Neither of them had heard of such endurance. Was this exaggeration, or were humans truly capable of such feats? They would find out soon enough. The first 3 days on Varkan IV were busy but uneventful. The team explored the outer edges of the ancient ruins, documenting everything they found. Stone walls still stood after millions of years, covered in strange symbols no one could read. Trixala worked alongside Sarah, scanning and cataloging artifacts. She was impressed by the human captain's patience and attention to detail. Every stone was photographed. Every marking was recorded. Nothing was rushed. "You are very thorough," Trixala commented. "These ruins have waited millions of years. They deserve our respect and careful study. Rushing would be an insult to whatever civilization built them." The Morathi technicians, small beings barely reaching Trixala's waist, ran their equipment with quick efficiency. Specialist Venri approached the two leaders with a data pad. "Preliminary scans show the structures extend underground," he reported. "Tunnels and chambers, perhaps the living quarters of the builders." "Underground would provide shelter from the extreme temperatures," Sarah said. "Smart design." "Can we explore these tunnels?" Zethan asked. "Some of them appear stable, others have collapsed. We would need to proceed carefully." The decision was made to explore the most stable tunnel section the following day. That night, a sandstorm hit the camp. It began as a distant rumble. Then the wind rose and the sky turned dark with flying sand. Visibility dropped to nothing. The tents shook violently. "Everyone stay inside," Zethan ordered through the communication system. "The storm will pass." But it did not pass. Hours went by and the wind only grew stronger. The temperature inside the tent dropped as sand blocked the heating systems. Emergency protocols activated. Krentel was shivering badly. His Velari biology was not handling the cold well. Trixala wrapped thermal blankets around him, but his skin was turning an unhealthy gray color. "His core temperature is dropping," David announced, checking the medical scanner. "He needs heat." "The heaters are blocked," one of the cricks reported. "Sand is clogging the intake vents." "Then we clear them," Marcus stood up. "You cannot go outside in this storm," Zethan said. "The wind will tear you apart. Sand particles at these speeds will shred flesh from bone." Marcus was already pulling on his heavier emergency suit. "I have worked in worse. During the African Reconstruction Project, we had to repair power stations during dust storms. The key is moving slowly and staying low." "This is not Earth," Zethan insisted. "The conditions here are far more extreme." "With respect, Commander, if we do not fix those heaters, people are going to die. I am willing to take the risk." Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. "Not alone. I am coming with you." "Captain, that is unnecessary. We are a team. We do not send anyone out alone." Trixala watched as the two humans prepared to exit the tent. They moved with calm efficiency, checking each other's equipment. There was no panic, no hesitation, just focused action. David stayed inside to monitor their condition and provide medical support if needed. The airlock opened, and the humans disappeared into the howling darkness. The next 20 minutes were the longest of Trixala's life. Through the communication channel, she could hear grunts and heavy breathing. Once, she heard Sarah cry out in pain. "Status," she called. "Cut my arm on something sharp," Sarah responded. "It is not deep. Keep going, Marcus." "Almost there," Marcus said. "I can see the intake vent. It is completely buried, going to need to dig it out by hand." The sounds of digging came through the channel, metal scraping against sand. The wind screamed in the background. Finally, after what seemed like forever, the heaters hummed back to life. Warm air began flowing into the tent. Krentel stopped shivering. The airlock opened again and Marcus stumbled in, half carrying Sarah. They were covered in sand, their suits torn in multiple places. Blood dripped from Sarah's arm. David rushed to help, guiding Sarah to the medical station. Her wound was not deep, as she had said, but it was bleeding freely. "Humans bleed a lot," Venri observed with concern. "We have more blood than most species," David explained as he cleaned and sealed the wound. "It allows us to lose some without serious harm. She will be fine." Zethan approached Marcus, who was pulling off his damaged suit. The human skin was red and raw where sand had gotten through the tears. "You could have died," the Crick's commander said. "We could have all died if the heaters stayed off," Marcus replied. "This was the better option." "I do not understand your species. You risked your life for beings you barely know." Marcus looked at him with tired but steady eyes. "We are on the same team. That is enough." The storm continued for 2 more days. By the end, supplies were running low and everyone was exhausted, everyone except the humans. They took the majority of watch shifts. They did the hardest physical work. When the storm finally ended and the team emerged to assess the damage, it was Marcus and Sarah who led the repair efforts. Trixala found herself studying them constantly. How were they still moving? She had slept when she could, but the stress and cold had drained her. The other Velari were barely functioning. Even the hardy Cricks were slowing down. But the humans just kept going. "Do you not need rest?" she finally asked David, who was calibrating equipment for the day's exploration. He paused and gave her a tired smile. "Of course we do, but we can push through when necessary. Humans evolved on a difficult planet. We had to develop the ability to keep functioning even when our bodies wanted to stop. But there must be limits." "There are, but they are probably further than you would expect. Our ancestors survived ice ages, droughts, famines. They walked for days without food or water. They fought predators with nothing but sticks and rocks. Endurance is in our genes." Trixala thought about her own species. The Velari had evolved on a gentle world with mild temperatures and abundant resources. They had never needed to develop such resilience. "We have much to learn from each other," she said. David nodded. "That is why we are here." After the storm cleared, the team finally entered the underground tunnels. The ancient passages were stable, carved from solid rock by hands unknown. The walls were covered in more of the strange symbols, glowing faintly with some internal light source that still functioned after all these years. "Remarkable," Trixala breathed. "The power source is still active." "Some kind of geothermal tap, maybe," Sarah suggested. "Using the planet's internal heat. Very clever." They descended deeper, documenting everything. The tunnels branched and crossed, forming a maze beneath the desert. Without their mapping equipment, they would have been hopelessly lost. At the third junction, Zethan held up one of his 4 arms. "Stop, I hear something." Everyone froze. In the silence they could hear it too, a low rumbling coming from somewhere ahead. "Sand lurkers?" Marcus asked, his hand moving to the tool belt at his waist. They carried no weapons, but some of the tools could serve as improvised defenses. "Unknown," Zethan said. "We should proceed with caution." They moved forward slowly. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber, larger than anything they had seen so far. The ceiling rose high above them, supported by massive pillars, and in the center of the chamber, illuminated by the glowing walls, was a machine. It was enormous, rising from the floor like a metal tree. Cables and tubes spread out from it, connecting to the walls and floor. Parts of it still moved, gears turning slowly, fluids flowing through transparent pipes. "It is still running," Venri said in awe. "After millions of years, this machine is still running." They approached carefully. Sarah circled the base, scanning everything. "I do not recognize any of this technology. It is completely different from anything the Federation has." "Because it predates the Federation by millions of years," Trixala said. "This civilization was ancient when our species were still crawling from the oceans." The rumbling grew louder. The machine was speeding up. "Did we activate something?" one of the Cricks asked nervously. "I do not think so," David said. "But maybe our presence triggered some kind of response. We should back away." They retreated to the chamber entrance. The machine continued to accelerate. Lights flickered along its surface. Then, with a sound like thunder, it stopped. Silence filled the chamber. No one moved. Then a section of the machine opened, and something emerged. It was a robot, humanoid in shape but clearly mechanical. Its body was made of the same metal as the machine, smooth and seamless. It had no face, just a smooth surface where a head should be. But somehow, Trixala felt it was looking at them. The robot spoke. Its voice was strange, made of sounds that were not quite words. None of the translation systems could interpret it. "Unknown language," Sarah said quietly, "but it is trying to communicate." She stepped forward, hands raised in what she hoped was a universal gesture of peace. "We are explorers," she said slowly. "We mean no harm, we came to study these ruins." The robot tilted its head, as if considering her words. Then it raised one metal arm and pointed at her. A beam of light shot from its finger and struck Sarah in the chest. "Captain," Marcus shouted, rushing forward. But Sarah did not fall. She stood frozen in place, her eyes wide. The light was not harming her. It was scanning her. The beam shut off. Sarah blinked and took a deep breath. "I am okay," she said. "It was not an attack, it was reading me. I could feel it in my mind, looking at my memories, my thoughts." The robot spoke again. This time, the words were in broken but understandable standard. "You are new, different, not the creators." "No," Sarah said. "We are not your creators. They have been gone for a very long time." "Long time," the robot repeated. "Yes, long time waiting, protecting." "Protecting what?" Trixala asked. The robot turned to face her. Another beam of light, another scan. Trixala felt the strange presence in her mind, gentle but thorough. "Protecting the gift," the robot said. "For those who came after. The creators knew they would end. They prepared this gift for the future." "What gift?" Zethan demanded. The robot did not scan him. Perhaps it could not read Crick's minds. Instead, it simply gestured to the machine behind it. "Knowledge, technology, everything the creators knew and made, waiting for those worthy to receive it." "Worthy?" Marcus crossed his arms. "And how do you determine worthiness?" "The mind shows truth," the robot said. "The small one with soft fur has fear but also curiosity. Good. The tall one with many arms has suspicion but also duty. Acceptable. The blue one has caution but also wisdom. Good." It turned back to Sarah. "But you have something else, fire inside. Well, that does not break. You walk through the storm when others would hide. You risk death to save those different from yourself. This is unexpected." "Humans have a history of doing unexpected things," Sarah said. "Yes, I see this now. I have read your mind. Your species is young but fierce. You endure where others fall. You fight when others flee. You hope when others despair." The robot was silent for a moment. Then it spoke again. "The creators did not know what species would find this place. They did not know what worthy meant, so they programmed me to judge. For millions of years I have waited. Other beings came before you. They were not worthy." "What happened to them?" David asked. "They gave up. The trials were too hard. The desert, the cold, the storms, they left and the gift remained unclaimed." "The hardships were tests," Trixala realized. "Yes, the creators believed that only those who could endure hardship would use the gift wisely. Comfort breeds complacency. Struggle breeds strength." Sarah nodded slowly. "So you have been watching us from the moment we landed." "Yes, watching, testing, and you have passed." The machine behind the robot began to glow. Panels opened, revealing data crystals by the thousands. "The gift is yours. Knowledge of medicine, engineering, physics beyond what you have discovered. Clean energy that never runs out. Faster travel between stars. Longer life for all who want it. Everything the creators learned in their billion years of existence." The team stood in stunned silence. This was beyond anything they had expected. They had come for artifacts and ended up finding the greatest treasure in the galaxy. "Why give this to us?" Sarah asked. "Because you earned it, because you endured, and because I sense that you will use it not just for yourselves but for all." Sarah looked at her team, then at the Velari, Crix, and Morathi who had made this journey with them. "We share with our allies," she said. "This gift belongs to the entire Federation, not just humanity." The robot made a sound that might have been laughter. "Yes, this is why you are worthy. The creators would be pleased." The return to Nexus 7 was very different from the arrival. The shuttle carried not just the team, but dozens of data crystals containing knowledge beyond imagination. News spread quickly through the Federation. A joint committee was formed to study and distribute the gift. Human and alien scientists worked together, translating the ancient knowledge into forms all species could use. The medical advances alone would save billions of lives. Trixala stood before the Federation Council, giving her report. The vast chamber was filled with representatives from 100 species. "The joint mission to Varkan IV was a complete success," she said. "We discovered ancient ruins containing advanced technology and knowledge from a civilization that existed millions of years ago. This gift was given to us by an artificial guardian that had been waiting for worthy recipients." "And how was worthiness determined?" the Velari High Speaker asked. "Through endurance. The trials of the planet itself were tests. Only those who could survive and persist were deemed worthy. Our team passed these tests." She paused, looking at the humans seated in the gallery. Sarah, Marcus, and David sat with their fellow humans, watching the proceedings. "I must be honest with this council. Without the human members of our team, we would have failed. When the sandstorm struck and our heating systems failed, it was the humans who went outside to repair them. When supplies ran low, they took smaller portions so others could eat. When morale faltered, they kept working, kept hopping, kept pushing forward." "You praise them highly," a Crix senator observed. "But they are young to space travel. Surely their accomplishments are exaggerated." "They are not. I watched them with my own eyes. I saw Captain Chen walk through a storm that would have killed any of us. I saw Lieutenant Flynn work for 30 hours without rest. I saw Specialist Park treat our injured with skill and compassion. These humans earned every word of praise." She addressed the full council now. "We have looked at humans as newcomers, as primitives who only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. This was a mistake. They may be new to space, but they are old in endurance. Their world forged them in ways we cannot understand. They are survivors." "What do you recommend?" the High Speaker asked. "Full integration into the Federation, not as junior members but as equals. They have proven themselves on Varkan IV. They will prove themselves again and again if we let them. Humans are not a threat to us. They are an asset." The debate lasted for hours, but in the end, the vote was clear. Humanity was granted full membership in the Galactic Federation. That evening there was a celebration on Nexus 7. Species mingled freely, sharing drinks and stories. Sarah stood by the observation window, looking out at the stars. "You seem thoughtful," Trixala said, joining her. "I am thinking about what the robot said, about endurance being worthiness, about struggle breeding strength." "It troubled you?" "A little. Humanity has struggled for a long time. Wars, famines, diseases. We almost destroyed ourselves more than once. I used to think of our history as something to be ashamed of, but maybe it was training, preparation for what was to come." "Your history made you who you are," Trixala said. "A species that does not give up, that finds a way through any obstacle, that keeps going when all hope seems lost." Sarah smiled. "Some would call that stubbornness. And some would call it courage. I know what I saw on Varkan IV. I know what your species is capable of. The galaxy should be glad that humans want to be friends and not enemies." Marcus and David approached, carrying drinks. They handed cups to the two leaders. "A toast," Marcus said, "to the first joint mission. May there be many more." They raised their cups together. "To the future," Trixala said. "To endurance," Sarah added. They drank together as stars wheeled slowly past the window. Somewhere out there were more mysteries to uncover, more challenges to face, more tests to pass. And humanity would be ready for all of them. In the months that followed, the knowledge from Varkin IV spread through the Federation. New technologies transformed daily life for billions. Diseases that had plagued species for millennia were cured. Ships traveled faster than ever before. The gift of the ancient creators changed everything. But perhaps the greatest change was in how the Federation viewed humanity. Sarah Chen was promoted to Admiral, the first human to hold such a rank in the combined fleet. Marcus Flynn became the head of Federation Engineering, overseeing the implementation of new technologies. David Park founded the Interspecies Medical Institute, where human and alien doctors worked together to advance healing for all. Joint missions became standard practice. Humans were requested specifically by other species, valued for their endurance, their creativity, and their refusal to give up. Stories spread of human teams working through impossible conditions, finding solutions where others saw only problems. Zethan, the Krix commander who had doubted humans at first, became one of their strongest advocates. He told anyone who would listen about the sandstorm on Varkin IV, about how the humans had saved his team when all seemed lost. "I learned something important," he said in an interview. "I learned that strength is not just about size or power. It is about will, about the determination to keep fighting even when you are tired, even when you are hurt, even when you are afraid. Humans have this in abundance." Trixala continued to work with human teams on many missions. She became a bridge between species, helping others understand what made humans special. She wrote a book about her experiences, titled Children of Earth: Understanding Human Endurance. It became required reading at the Federation Academy. "They are not superhuman," she wrote. "They get tired, they feel pain, they know fear, but they do not let these things stop them. They acknowledge their limits and then push past them anyway. This is what sets them apart. This is why they will change the galaxy." The ancient robot on Varkin IV was studied extensively. It became a source of wisdom about the civilization that had created it. When asked about its judgment of humanity, it gave the same answer every time. "They burn," it said. "Inside them is a fire that does not go out. Other species have intelligence, strength, technology, but humans have something rarer. They have the will to endure. This is why they were worthy. This is why they will lead." Not everyone in the Federation was pleased with humanity's rapid rise. Some species resented these newcomers who had suddenly become so important. Tensions arose in some sectors. But whenever there was a crisis, it was often the humans who stepped up to help. When a plague struck the Morathi homeworld, human doctors worked around the clock to develop a cure. When a Velari colony was threatened by seismic activity, human engineers designed stabilizers that saved millions of lives. When pirates attacked Krix shipping lanes, human security forces volunteered to guard the routes. Each act of service built more trust. Each display of endurance earned more respect. Slowly, even the doubters came to accept that humans had a place in the Federation. 10 years after the first joint mission, a statue was erected on Nexus 7. It showed Captain Sarah Chen and Ambassador Trixala standing together, looking toward the stars. A plaque at the base read, "In honor of the first joint mission, which taught us that courage knows no species, and that endurance is the truest measure of worth." Sarah, now Admiral Chen, attended the dedication ceremony. She was older, her hair touched with gray, but her eyes still held the same fire that the ancient robot had recognized. "I never expected this," she said in her speech. "When we joined the Federation, we just wanted to explore, to learn, to find our place among the stars. We did not know we were being tested. We did not know that our struggles would prove our worth. We just did what humans have always done. We kept going." She looked at the statue, at the image of herself as a young captain. I hope future generations remember this moment, not because of what we achieved, but because of how we achieved it, together, through endurance, through partnership, through the refusal to give up on each other. Trixala stood beside her, her blue skin warm with emotion. They had become close friends over the years, their bond forged in the fires of shared challenge. "The galaxy is changing," Trixala said, "and it is changing because of what happened on Varkan IV, because a group of humans showed us what true endurance looks like, because they proved that the youngest species in the Federation might be its strongest." The ceremony ended, the crowd dispersed, but Sarah and Trixala stayed looking up at the statue. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we had failed?" Sarah asked. "We did not fail, that is what matters. But if we had given up during the storm, if Marcus had not gone outside, if we had decided the tunnels were too dangerous to explore." Trixala considered this. Then someone else would have found the gift. Eventually, the robot would have waited. But it might have been thousands of years, millions maybe, all that knowledge lost while we struggled alone. Yes, but that did not happen, because humans do not give up. That is the lesson, is it not? That endurance matters, that persistence changes history, that the will to keep going, even when everything seems hopeless, is the most powerful force in the universe. Sarah nodded. The creators understood that. They built their gift for species who would fight for it, not because they wanted to make it hard, but because they knew the truth. What truth? That anything worth having is worth struggling for, that easy victories mean nothing, that the hardest paths lead to the greatest rewards. They stood in silence for a while, then Sarah smiled. "Come on, we have work to do. Another joint mission leaves tomorrow, some newly discovered ruins on the edge of known space. The team requested human participation." "Naturally," Trixala said, "everyone wants humans on their team now. Because we are lucky. Because you endure. Because when things get hard, you do not stop. Because you taught the galaxy that the fire inside matters more than the obstacles outside." They walked away together, leaving the statue behind. In the distance, ships prepared for launch. New worlds waited to be explored. New challenges waited to be faced. And humanity, once the youngest and least of the Federation's members, now stood at the forefront. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had proven, again and again, that they would never give up. The galaxy had learned what human endurance meant, and they would never forget it.